I don't know how many of you are electricians or understand electrical work or how wiring should be done. And on this wiring diagram is from their manual and how they are wired. This is B ground. This should be connected to burner and the ground. If you would look at the Fenwell manual, this wire goes to the ignition probe. On a brand new dryer, on an older dryer, it goes to the ignition probe. This wire needs to be bonded to the ground. It needs to go bonded to the ground. This has a ground wire going to the burner here, and that goes back and gets connected to a ground bar in the electrical box right here. That wire goes over and down to here. This B ground needs to be connected to that ground terminal, because this board is sensing between these two terminals for its flame sensing to ground, and your flame sensing, your board longevity, it's all going to work better if you bond that to ground. Your B ground needs to be connected to ground. That's something that I would do going through at pre-season. The ignition gap is very important across all dryers. I don't care what dryer you're working with. Your ignition gap, your spark plug gap should be an 1/8 inch. On these, you can have up to a 3/16. Once you hit a 1/4 inch, you're going to start running into trouble. You must have 1/8 inch gap, can be up to 3/16, but no larger. Somewhere within that 1/16 inch is where you're going to get the hottest spark, but yet not have problems. The Starfire burner, you want to add a second flame rod, because in these burners, the flame kind of moves around in there. And it can leave the flame rod and come against the flame rod. You can move it, and you're kind of chasing the wind. So you're best off putting a second flame rod in. It does not need to be on the other side. You can have one flame rod here and one on this fin down here, or even on this fin. Like, they don't usually have to be far apart to really improve your flame sensing. That's something that I do if I'm going out, especially a natural gas burner, a Starfire natural gas burner, like, I'm putting a second flame rod on. I'll put a second flame rod in a brand new dryer before I start the first time, because it's just going to eliminate headaches down the road, because you're going to run into them issues. The other thing, we'll get to that. Okay, this option of eliminating them flame probes. Now, those flame probes are a pain in the neck. Go ahead.
I have a quick question about the flame rod. You said to add the second one.
Yeah.
Now, tying that in, you just tie it into the
jumper wire from one to the other.
Jump from one to the other.
Yes.
Okay, and also on that ground wire, you're saying for that one to ground it out, right? For that igniter, you leave the igniter still grounded though, right? And you
Yes.
just run a ground to the ground bar, which will cause.
Yes,
dispatch.
correct.
Okay.
Correct. So you still need that B ground connected to the one side of your ignition probe, your one ignition probe, and then also connected to your ground bar, so that your board is actually grounded out. Because that arcing to that B ground and not connected, it works better if it's ground. All ground should be bonded together.
And the sensors, the flame sensors can be intersynced together.
Yes.
Okay. Perfect.
But the flame sensor needs to be hooked to the probe. The ground wire going next to the flame sensor needs to be hooked in with the same as that B ground. Not the flame sensor itself only goes to sensor.
Right.
That picture doesn't show real well. It shows that green wire going there. That green wire actually fastens to the bolt that holds the bracket of the flame sensor on. On here, those flame probe, those ignition probes on the GSIs are a pain in the neck to reach in, especially when you're on the side of the dryer, you're reaching in, trying to adjust how close they are together. So then you try to bend them a little bit, try to get that 1/8 inch gap. You have a screwdriver or something you're trying to check the gap with. They can be a real pain in the neck. Or you can take the whole bracket out and try to adjust it and put it back in, but now you need to make sure your ignition probes are going through that hole. You need to make sure you didn't get it angled and have your one probe closer to the edge of the hole that it's going through than it is to the other probe, so now you're getting arcing to the housing instead of to each other. That's a kind of that can be a struggle. If you've ever worked on them, you can get frustrated with those. Now, so take take off this plate right here, or the plate up there on top you could, and put this plate on with a spark plug in. When farm fans built dryers, they were using a spark plug for ignition. Very similar setup to this. They were using a more expensive spark plug, a custom made one, but it was a very similar setup to this. So this should work if you have your gap correct and you ground, your burner grounded and everything properly. This should eliminate some struggles with the ignition of these burners.
Lydell, how critical, so you're saying even the 1/8 inch gap on that spark plug, I mean, that is super critical.
So you don't need a feeler gauge. You don't need a feeler gauge to say it's exactly 1/8 inch, but when I'm saying 1/8 inch, I don't mean a 1/16 inch. And when I'm saying 1/8 to 3/16, I don't mean a 1/4 inch. Because if you're at a 1/4 inch, you're gonna have problems. Like, that is not gonna last long term. It's not gonna run through harvest on a 1/4 inch. You're gonna have some sort of problem. You're gonna have coil problems, you're gonna have some sort of other issues that 1/4 inch gap is gonna cause. So when I'm saying 1/8 to 3/16, I mean somewhere between there.
Yeah.
Like, on the spark plug, it don't have to be quite as big. Like, I would probably push towards the 1/8 inch a little more. But it's if you're between 1/8 and 3/16, you're gonna be good. It's going to work good. You're not gonna have problems.
What about if a maintenance manager or maintenance guy he has a GSI dryer with a Fenwall board, puts that ignition upgrade in, the relationship between that Fenwall board and now using that Autolite 64, does that work that board harder, or
No,
if the gap's
no.
true, it should be fine?
No different. The gap is what makes a difference, how hard that transformer is gonna, how much heat that transformer will make, is the gap of that arcing.
Okay.
So if that gap is 1/8 to 3/16, it's gonna work the same. And here you have your B ground. So now if you have a spark plug, you're not gonna have two probes. You hook this to your spark plug and you have this fastened to the ground.
Okay.
Because at that point, your spark plug is sparking to the ground. So I think this is going to eliminate some headaches.